This long article, this guy writes, nothing he says, all the points he raised, nothing is dispositive of the central rebuttal of it's Lord of the Rings. It's not what you think it is what it is. He's talking about how people have been so rude online. It's like, well, welcome to the internet, you pussy. Or how he's played video games and collected DVDs and all these kind of things. And it comes to the punchline is, so why shouldn't I be able to feel the joy of seeing people who resemble me within Middle Earth? Because the story is already written. If you want to write something else, then by all means, go ahead and write something else. Tolkien already wrote the story, and then he does a little, they do a little twist of the knife, because ultimately it comes down to these people don't think that European stories have value, or European people have value, which is weird because they do this parasitical action to the stories instead of just simply writing their own, which is what makes me less deserving of this pop culture heritage. That's a little weird. I mean, would you refer to an Asian story or an African story that way? You wouldn't. You wouldn't have put the pop in front of it. It's a little, it's a little bit of an FU. So the simple reason is what makes me less deserving is because the story's already written. You're not in the story. He wrote the story as is. It's an Englishman wrote the story based on earlier European mythology and also his experience growing up in a small village and then his later experience with the war. It's his story. It's written. It's concluded. You can't change it. You can, if you try to change it and try to remake it or reimagine it, you've made propaganda. So you can enjoy the stories and play the video games and board games and all that kind of nonsense. It's like, those aren't the stories. The story was started and concluded. It's a finished piece. It's discrete. It's complete. It's done. You can't go and put non-European people in the European story, because everything that went into the story and the writing, it's the sum of all the knowledge that created Tolkien was his European experience. European people matter. They're important. They're not fungible. You can't just digitally erase their stories because you want to put yourself into the story. This culture vulture self-insert. It's bizarre. They claim to be so against that, and then you go, yeah, Europeans must be like gods to these people because you're constantly stealing their stories instead of just writing your own story. So someone makes the point, was it a psych op, Rings of Power the whole time? It's not a bad theory because, really anything globalists do is going to be propaganda of some sort. And to be fair, every story is somebody's worldview. If you want to call it propaganda, it's just for most of human history, it has been nationalism. It's been tribalism, blood tribe. It's made sense, at least to the European stories of that concept, and it's only later as globalism tries to do what it does, it's worm its way in and destroy, is where suddenly the nationalist story that's based on the blood family has to be subverted, corrupted, and destroyed, by these evil people. And it's even the humorous part of it is these people are such fans of Lord of the Rings. Well, I invite you to read the end of Return of the King, and it talks about how it deals with these subverters and corruptors. It's like you fight the war and then you come back to the homelands and realize you have to fight a war to get rid of these parasites, which is what happened at the end of Return of the King in the books. It's a little bit reminiscent of them, burning out the communists sort of thing. But, you look at these people and go, oh, yeah, I'm fans. I love Lord of the Rings. You go, have you read the books? I watched the movies. Okay, well. So it reminds me of that meme of they're trying to accelerate control via cultural Marxism. But, the further they push it, people start noticing what's going on with this situation. So the pushback starts. So the globalists have to double down to try to keep control and further manipulate people. But people are looking at stuff like Rings of Power or The Woman King, which is so ridiculous. And they see what is going on, especially something like The Woman King, because the history is just right out there for you. And you read the interviews of these people and you're like, you women are crazy. I mean, the things you're saying in this interview, you're just gaslighting the audience. We had to entertain. I guess it's a different video, but like all this stuff works together where they hate you so bad they want you to own all your history. It's like it's what happened to other people, but you're retelling a story of an actual tribe and you're lying about what actually happened. At least, people might soft pedal history a little bit, but like, you actually told this Woman King story. you just seem to ignore your role in the trade of human cargo, which is we had to entertain people. No, that's not even making an attempt at a movie. It's just it's based in history. No, this is based in some kind of Narnia world. Anyway, so people are rejecting these kind of stories, and it's not like it's an unknown history. It's like there's plenty of history to Dahomey out there. So, or the original Lord of the Rings also. So mainstream media in Hollywood is calling everyone phobic, but the thing is, they call everyone who's not a globalist. If you're not a globalist, they consider you, Hugo Boss wearing, marching around type. Eventually it reaches this tipping point where people realize, yeah, this is just grifters who are just crying wolf sort of situation. If they don't get their way, they immediately deflect and ad hominem instead of saying why this is even better Lord of the Rings. This is essentially what they're saying is they're better than Tolkien at telling Tolkien's story, and you realize, well, of course, logically you couldn't be, but also Tolkien was a master storyteller. He was a master craftsman who wrote some of the best fantasy ever written. And unless you're also of that ilk of that top fraction of a percentage of fantasy writers, then no, you can't make it better than him. You can make globalist propaganda, and that's exactly what they ended up with. Eventually, people come to the realization that these istophobic words and terms, they're not real organic words. They're just control terms. And there's a long history of, something Bronstein, who later changed his name to, Bernstein, who created some of these words. It's like, it doesn't matter really the origin if they were actually created. It's how they're used. They're used to manipulate NPCs because they want a stimulus response. They want you to hear these words and through social compliance just be afraid and just comply with whatever they want to say. Oh, this is a stunning and brave movie. It was a historical reimagining of Tolkien's take on a globalist just all these stupid talking points. They're trying to make you afraid to say, oh, this is stupid. European stories are valuable. European people are valuable. And you say that, it's like all of a sudden you see hear the screeching of harpies, because even saying that will make the NPCs very uncomfortable. The trick is to escaping this matrix is not to deny it or to call the other side that, no, you guys are the real istophobes. No, don't even engage with them, because it gives their terms validity. The term itself is Frankfurt School levels of manipulation. It's Bolshevik societal brainwashing and fear-based social compliance. It's like, what the globalists, it's like they took Scientology and they just turned it up to 11. Hollywood and the mainstream media are horrible people. They fly to islands and make sacrifices to Moloch types of people. They've been Bolsheviks the whole time. It's like I was going to say it started in 1918, but not really, because the people who were doing the writings had to inspire it even before that. So, and the thing is, you look at their lives and you go like, oh, so these people were great men who had a history of having large amounts of responsibility, and oh no, they were just a bunch of alcoholics. Oh, okay. And they started this thing that led to hundreds of millions of people being fertilizing fields. So like, oh, their ideas were horrible right from the bat. Yeah. Anyone, a child would look at their ideas and say like, this doesn't work. Different people don't work together. That goes against all of human history, and like every empirical piece of human experience goes against what the Bolsheviks and now the globalists are trying to push. And it's like, oh, well, we'll do it again. We'll do it better this time. It's like, you already put 100 million people underground. I think we learned our lesson. They've been Bolsheviks the whole time. You got to call them what they are and stop playing by their rules. And, when they start calling people, it's like, of course, they turn off comments. But, I mean, the thing is, now we have so many alternative media things. It's why like, I don't ignore pop culture, stuff like the Phantom Menace or Comicsgate. Because in some small way, it's like you have a way of countering the narrative, even staying within the YouTube rules. You make a video, it reaches 100 people, but they think about it, they talk to people. It's this massive multi-parallel network of, little nexus points, spider webbing off to other nexus points. Imagine a cool visual in your mind if I had anything more than $100 Kindle. Like, the visual I'm talking about. That cool visual. I should do like a hand-drawn like a drawn in like Sharpie or something. Like, this is a visual. I want you to imagine all these points are sparkling. I think you know what I'm talking about. So Tolkien might have been a progressive for the time, but that doesn't mean he wanted to give his story away so Marxists could make anti-white propaganda. And that's what it is. I know, like, a lot of these, it sounds a little tinfoil hat, or maybe it makes people uncomfortable, but it does you no good to ignore these elephants in the room. And it's a lot of, I mean, you know, sacred cows make the best hamburgers, sort of thing. It's an English story it's written by an Englishman about his own personal experience, based on earlier European fantasy stories. Even some of the terms, Shadowfax, I think, was from an earlier. I read about the history of how he came into writing that, and he said, yeah, I openly borrowed from earlier stories. He wasn't plagiarizing them; he was giving credit to them, like Shadowfax. It's like, if you read the stories that it was based on, he's talked about it in countless interviews. It was kind of a cool thing to do, but it's like it's a uniquely English, European culture and story. The thing is, you're going to have to start standing up for yourself. Obviously, you're listening to this, your European origin, and to say, yes, European lives matter, their culture matters, our literature matters, all the things that go into making up this great group of people with amazing literature. It all matters. It all has validity. You got to stop letting these people kind of demean and dehumanize you, because if you've cracked a page of book history, it doesn't go to a good place, and it's already gone very, very far along this checklist of deletion at a large scale. I mean, because what is this? Well, this is digital erasure. They're erasing history. How many kids are gonna see this version of Tolkien and think that this is Tolkien? They're not going to see the Peter Jackson movies from 20 years ago, because the stuff that's coming out digitally is, they control the narrative. It's like, oh, well, you can go watch the originals. It's like, yeah, but how many kids are watching the originals, or watching this, or going back and reading the books? If they watch this and they think, oh, this image of, like, they think this is not only Tolkien, but this is also, oh, European mythology was always looking like this. It's like, why would it? Why? No, this is the terrifying power of propaganda with people who, Malcolm X said, why would you let enemies teach your kids? It's like, this is a form of education. This is just insane levels of propaganda. Anyway, European people obviously create the best stories in the world. They're so good that people constantly are seeking to subvert and destroy the stories, the culture, the history. The goal of the globalists is to rewrite history, to write the people of the light out of their own stories and history by doing it digitally. Like, this isn't this digital genocide. These people are parasites, and it's okay to call them what they are. They're using non-European people kind of as their shields, because if you criticize the story, they just raise one of these non-Europeans up and go, oh, you're criticizing this person, you must be istophobic. I'm not. Why would I criticize an actor who's being paid to play a role? The actor didn't write the story, you idiot. Thanks for gaslighting us. No, we're criticizing the globalists who are pulling the strings on these stories. The thing is, you got to break out of the brainwashing and destroy these people who are pushing this kind of stuff. Counter their narrative and destroy their narrative. Parody, lampoon. Even that's why Phantom Menace Comicsgate is so powerful, because you laugh at these people, like, you just call them what they are. But you also got to. Eventually you're going to have to get a little bit more based and say, yeah, European people matter. We matter. European stories matter. Literature matters. It's okay to hate the people who are these culture vultures. You can't really defeat this and still be politically correct. You're going to have to be honest about a lot of stuff and say, like, yeah, this kind of stuff isn't okay. You're erasing. You're taking Tolkien, who wrote this great story, and you're erasing it as a great story, and you're leaving people with this impression that this is Tolkien's work, because you bought the rights to tell the story from probably the grandson or the estate, whoever's remaining. It's like, yeah, this isn't Tolkien's story, but people have been left with the impression that this is, or that this is European mythology, that it was a bunch of non-European people were important in founding European mythology. No, they weren't. And as this guy in the article points out, they were always going to be non-European people everywhere. They were, yes, of course, but they weren't part of the story. They weren't foundational. They weren't integral to the story. Why would they be? Tolkien was raised into some small village, probably without indoor plumbing or electricity at the time. It's like, he wasn't in London. He was like, they weren't a part of the story. If they were, he would have put them in the story. The story is the alpha and omega. It's the beginning and end. It's completed. It's done. Anything other than the story itself and trying to be as close to the story as possible is propaganda. And these people going, oh, these people called me racial epithets on the internet. Again, welcome to the internet, you pussy. They call me the same epithets, which is kind of weird. But like that's just part of the experience of the internet. And the fact that you were made to feel bad, or you allowed yourself to feel bad, or you played video games, or you supported the pop culture aspect of the story, it doesn't offer a rebuttal to the argument that this is a European story for European people. Yes, you can enjoy it any way you want, but you can't retell it and not expect, yes, if you own the rights, you can do with it as you wish, but you can't tell people that they have to be on board with it. And just because you get your feelings hurt online, again, probably because you're a pussy, doesn't offer any rebuttal to what people's the founding the core dogma of their criticism is, that this isn't the story. You're being a culture vulture. Oh, well, other people in the past have been culture vultures. Then why are you repeating that behavior if you find it objectionable? Oh, because we're out for revenge, which is what a lot of people are learning. Okay, anyway, I think I was careful enough on this version to get this past the algorithm. The earlier version had to go up on an Odyssey and Bit Chute. Sometimes it's a challenge to get through making these videos. Or check out the subscribe star, and I will see you guys all next episode.